Hey guys, welcome back to Friends and Enemas. I'm Lindsay, your host, and I have a very special guest here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ashley. I'm 29 and born and raised here in Arizona.
Nice. Are you a nurse or no?
Not yet. So,
Okay,
yeah, I'm just finishing up my prereqs. I'm about to apply to the actual program. So,
awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so I read in your write-in that nursing's kind of your plan B, C, D as well.
Yeah, I always was interested in it, but I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do forever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had grown up dancing, and so that was
Oh,
kind of my first interest and what I went to school ultimately for the first time.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up dancing. Is that something that you saw in your future? Like that's what you wanted to do? You grew
Yeah,
up wanting to be a dancer.
Yeah, and I didn't really know what that was gonna look like because when you're young, making it in dance looks like maybe going to New York or
Mhm.
California, being on a company, dancing for them. And I thought that that sounded really exciting, but
Yeah.
kind of until I was in college, they're like, "Are you sure you want to do that like starving artist life?" And we had people come and talk to us from New York, and they're like,
It's hard out there.
Yeah, it takes a special person." So when I was in school for it, I'm like, I'm not really sure where it's gonna take me,
Yeah.
but kind of just down for the ride.
I feel like we're similar there. If you guys don't know, I also say nursing is my
Hmm.
plan B, and you can take that one of two ways. Like I've made posts about it before. You can take it like it's my fallback plan,
Hmm.
or you can take it like it's my plan B. I've pivoted in my life and I want to go
Exactly.
to nursing. And that's why I like nursing because it's
Hmm.
so timeless. It's literally anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
anyone. If you can get through the school, you can do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, any stage of your life, you can go
Mhm.
back to nursing school. And I was similar as you, as I was growing up wanting to be a model, an
Mhm.
actress, kind of in the arts, in
Mhm.
the entertainment industry as well. And it's not easy out there.
No.
And anyone you ask that is already there and you're like, do you think I should do it? They
Mhm.
say, no,
Yeah.
don't
Nope.
run
Yep.
because you're filled with a lot of doubt,
Mhm.
a lot of no's
Yeah.
until you get a yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because you also get that in nursing. Like a
Mhm.
lot of people want to poop on nursing and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's super negative.
Yep.
Everyone tells you not to do it. But
Mhm.
I feel like if you use nursing to your advantage,
Yeah.
you can do everything else you want.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what
Yep.
I did. It
Yeah.
sounds like what you're
Yeah,
doing.
honestly, yeah. And yeah, I'm getting the same thing right now, like going back for nursing. They're like, "Don't do it." And I'm like, "No, I think I'll like it. I promise."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I
But
think there's something to be said about, it doesn't have to be your passion
yeah.
for you to be good at it. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like if you're a decent human being, taking care of people is the easy part.
I agree. Yeah. And I do think I have a passion for it. And ultimately, it's that like patient connection that I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to. I just love being around people. And so I feel like that's the one thing a lot of people don't necessarily like. Like they like the medical side of it, but they're maybe not, the ones that like want to be in the rooms talking to patients necessarily, interacting with their families,
Hmm.
and things like that. So I understand like burnout's real and that's real in any career, but
It
I'm
is.
29 and pivoting. So at the same time, I'm like, I kind of understand what burnout is because I had that with my first career too.
What
So
was your first career?
so once I graduated, I taught dance all growing up too. So I
Oh.
started when I was 2, taught at 15, like helped out around the studio. That's kind of how I paid for my classes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's expensive and I'm one
Yeah.
of 4. And so my mom's like, if you want to dance like a lot, you're gonna have to work for it. And so I found ways to be creative and get my classes, discounted or
Oh,
paid for,
wow.
yeah, by cleaning or assisting. And so that was a really great, life lesson that you
An
have to work hard. Yeah,
experience,
and experience.
absolutely.
So yeah, so I went to school for dance, and then when I kind of graduated, it was kind of at that time that I'm like, okay, and what do I do with this? And so I kind of took a little break. I started teaching ballroom and Latin and got to dance with partners and teach adults.
Okay.
And that was fun, but I was used to teaching kids. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to it ultimately. And so I started at an elementary school
Oh.
teaching. Yeah. And I remember walking in the first day and just being like, I'm not sure that I'm going to like this,
Oh.
just because I'm very used to the studio life of like teaching after school, and
Yeah.
so much freedom and just creativity. And it's such a blast. And the kids, pay to be there, they want to be there.
Yeah.
Now I'm like their elective that they like have to take at an elementary school. It was a performing arts school. And yeah, they just didn't necessarily want to be there, but we tried to make it a good experience for them. And a lot of them ended up coming back and taking it, which was fun.
Oh.
Yeah, so I did that for 2 years, and then I wanted to kind of experience working with an older age group, and so I went to a high school and taught
Oh.
for 2 years.
How was
Yeah.
I feel like that would be more difficult.
It was easier, I feel like, for me.
Really?
Yeah, just because I feel like I grew up being, like, a youth leader and working with that age group
Okay.
too, and so a lot of them viewed me, I feel like, as, like, their older sister or
Oh, cute.
mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was a really good experience, I feel like, just because we had that good balance of, like, they respected me and they knew that I expect a lot out of them, but at the same time, I was someone that they could come to and talk, like, to, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since you're pivoting to nursing,
Mhm.
but you've always wanted to do dance, were you ever in the service industry as well?
Yeah, like a
I just feel
server.
like all of us were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. During college the first time around, I was serving, so
And I
yeah.
feel like you have to do that too, like to be a part of the entertainment world
Mhm.
because you have to be flexible for
Oh,
gigs
yeah,
and
100%.
auditions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah,
very
it's currently getting
similar.
back into serving like time where it's gonna be popular, and I just started school. I ended my school year in July
Oh wow.
teaching,
Okay, okay.
and so it was not the time to pick up a serving job, but this yeah, I'm looking for one currently.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
I feel like
hopefully
you're
gonna get
right.
back in.
Seasonal, I mean, it's like the best time to
Yeah,
be a server. And
exactly.
honestly, there's a lot of similarities with serving
Mhm.
tables and waitressing
Yeah,
with
I
nursing.
could see that. A
Like
lot of
it's
people
a
on
lot of
it.
customer
Yeah.
service. So I feel like you're going to
Yeah.
be right on track with that.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
any part of you, why'd you pick nursing? Why nursing? Like you said,
Yeah.
like it's going to be a passion of yours. Like it's
Mhm.
easy to take care of people, but like why?
Yeah, so my dad is, or he was an IT director in Casa Grande for a hospital.
Oh,
And yeah, and so every summer he would be like, do you want to get some volunteer hours? Do you want to, come with me to work and, you can volunteer in one of the units? And I'm like,
yeah.
yeah. And so every summer I got to volunteer with him throughout high school and we would drive up together. And honestly, it was just great, like, time to bond together. But then when I was there, I was always doing something different. Like, I remember I got to work in labor and delivery and
Oh
be in the
wow.
little like unit and like just answer phones and do the door like when it buzzed,
Oh
and stuff and let
yeah.
them in. And that was so much fun, just getting to feel like a part of it, even though, I was like
No,
14.
but that's
But it was
still part of
yeah,
it.
and I just looked up to them so much and it was cool to see how they worked together, kind of like behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Um yeah, and I just found it really inspiring. And then on the flip side of that, I got to work in the HR too. And they had assigned me to go around and do something called life stories. And
Oh,
that was so neat. I got to go around and they had like a little template that you had to use and you would ask the patients questions and like about their life growing
oh,
up. Yeah, and then
cute.
you would take it back to your office, type it up, and they would frame it, and then you got to bring it back to them.
Oh, that kinda gave me chills because
Yeah,
that's kind of a sweet moment.
it
I've actually
was.
never seen or heard of that.
Really? I don't know if they do it. I mean, Casa Grande, it's like a small hospital,
Okay.
so I don't know if they do that everywhere, but yeah, it was something that I got to be a part of, and honestly, it changed my life getting to
Oh,
like impact their lives.
yeah.
And yeah, so I look forward to that every summer and just connecting with them in the rooms too, and being in the hospitals. I remember just feeling like a sense of excitement, like, oh
Yeah.
man, I could really do this, or like, when you get to make that small impact in people's lives, just how it feels for you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I kind of had that thought, I would say, in high school, like maybe I do want to do nursing and like actually be in the hospitals
Yeah.
and yeah, so
Um, I feel like I don't know if you've heard of anything like this, but, like, in nursing, once you start your job, eventually, like, they want you to
mhm,
climb the clinical ladder. I
mhm,
feel like that's a good thing to keep in mind for your
yeah,
future job, like, one way to make a difference on your
mhm,
unit
mhm.
would definitely be doing that because I've never heard of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
So
I'll have to
maybe
note that, yeah,
yeah,
for
yes, you
later.
should keep it in your back
Yeah,
pocket
I
and be
will.
like, "I made this up.
Yeah, so you've never heard of this
Yeah, you've
probably.
probably never heard of this, but I'm about to change your life."
Right. And theirs.
In theirs, and climb
It
that
was
ladder.
so much fun.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I
Yeah.
think it's really sweet. Um, is there any part of you that misses dance or wants to go back to dance or still do you still dance in your free time?
I don't right now, which is crazy. This is the first time in my life that I've taken a break, and it has like really hasn't been that long since
Yeah.
July. And so yeah, it's definitely strange, and I think about that from time to time, and it scares me a little bit just because that was like really my creative outlet, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And I think teaching at a studio or something would be cool eventually. But while I'm in school, I mean, it's like I can't exert all that energy to like a creative thing and then be having to think so much,
Right.
in school.
That's
So
so true.
so yeah, I do fear that I'll miss it a little bit, but I know I'm making like ultimately the right
Yeah.
choice. So yeah, and I get to do little projects here and there. Like different companies will ask me to come and, guest teach or
Oh, that's
sub at a
cool.
studio, yeah, or do like big Christmas productions and stuff. So I am choreographing one for this Christmas
Oh,
actually. Yeah. So I get to be
is it
a little
local?
bit part. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That I can watch?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's
I'll give
super
you the deets.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like it's okay though, like you're saying, like a part of you misses it, but
Hmm.
you're doing something in your life like for a short time.
Yeah.
You're going to school. It's
Hmm.
a short time. When you're in it, it feels like a long time.
Yeah.
It feels like
Yeah.
it's brutal. But then when you get out of it and you can look
Hmm.
back, you're like, wow, I did all that, sacrifice certain
Yeah.
things that you really want
Hmm.
to like better your future.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss that piece or when they're in nursing school, they really feel like it's never gonna end or
Hmm.
it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know, a part of my platform, like I do complain on my platform a lot, but it's more so like just to give the
Hmm.
truth of what's happening. But I also like to reinforce that again, like, you can make nursing whatever you want.
Mhm.
It can be a bitch.
Yep.
Like, you
Yeah.
have to like, they treat it how the hospital will treat
Mhm.
you, and I feel like you'll do okay,
Yeah.
you know?
And I feel like time changes so much, like, getting older too. Like, the first time
Mhm.
in school, I felt like it took forever, even getting my degree in 3 years, you know?
Yeah,
But it's like,
yeah,
this time around, I'm like, it took me, like, 3 years to decide I wanted to go back to school. That felt like so quick. And so, yeah, I'm gonna be done before I know it. And
yeah.
so, yeah.
I also feel like you being a non-traditional student, because I
Mhm.
was also in my mid to late 20s whenever I
Okay.
started,
Yeah.
and I feel like going into it, I was really scared. I was like, "I'm gonna be the oldest person there."
Mhm.
I wasn't. "I'm gonna be the dumbest person there." I wasn't. Or, like, I just had this fear of, like, I'm not gonna be able to, or I was comparing myself
Mhm.
to traditional, like, 18, 19-year-old
Mhm.
students, and the truth is, like, everyone in my class was from 18 to 50 something,
Mhm.
which is great.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like the older you are, the more you are set on your why,
Mhm.
and so, like, you're zoned in.
Yeah.
Versus if I went to nursing school when I was 18, I don't think I would have got through it
No, me either.
at all.
No. Yeah.
Like, it makes sense why I had such a pause in
Mhm.
life, and I had to, like, pivot and
Yeah.
decide, actually, you need to take a break," 'cause
Yeah.
I was bouncing through different majors
Mhm.
multiple times,
Mhm.
not knowing what I wanted to do, feeling very bad about myself, but
Mhm.
the truth is it all worked out.
Right. Yeah,
Do you
that's
feel like
awesome.
that too?
Yeah, I do feel like I was really nervous to start. Like, that was the biggest thing. I was
Yeah.
just like, I don't know if I'm smart enough. That's what I kept
Right?
telling myself. I'm like, I danced my whole life, and that does take brain power, but a whole different one.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just didn't know if I was going to be smart enough to go back and do all of those classes, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really inspiring once I had started, and I'm online to finish my prereqs.
Oh,
And
nice.
so all in the discussion boards, you have to introduce yourself and
I
whatever.
hate
Yeah,
discussion
me too.
boards.
It's the replies that get
They're
me,
so
but
awkward. It's
I
like
know it's
everyone's
like
just doing it to get the
yeah,
points.
like, we're not actually interacting,
No.
but it's fine. But yeah, like, everyone that was introducing themselves, it was, "I'm 18," or like you said, "I'm 40," or "I'm a mom and I have 3 kids and I'm going back to school," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's so cool," and, like, a lot of them were nursing majors, so I know once I get to my program, I'll be with them and
Oh,
get to experience
yeah.
that,
Oh,
so,
that's cool. So
yeah,
you kind of already know them
kinda.
in a
Yeah,
sense.
from their introductions, yeah.
So earlier you were talking about, I'm jumping around because I'm thinking about earlier you were talking about how you worked several jobs to get
Mhm.
to do what you wanted.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, was that hard on you as a young, like, as an older kid, but young adult, I
Yeah,
guess?
like, when I was teaching dance or when I was teaching in the schools?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I was teaching in the schools, I was working 3 jobs because teachers
Wow.
don't get paid anything, and so that's on top of, like, summer jobs too, because
That
that's
is so
always expected,
crazy.
yeah, and so, a lot of people are like, "Wow, well, teaching is so easy because of the breaks," and it's like, you don't really get a break unless you're, like, married and that person is supporting you, which I'm not,
Right.
and so, yeah, I had to work every single break. I'm like, "This doesn't feel like any perk," because 'cause you're just
Yeah.
working, like, double as hard and having to find those summer jobs that'll hire you, for just a couple months.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was working 3 jobs when I finally decided, like, I've had enough. So, yeah, I was subbing dance, and I was also, like, a director, for a dance program, and so whether it was admin stuff or teaching dance, on top of the teaching and the prepping I'm gonna have to do for my school, I was also working at a boutique, and so
Wow.
on the weekends, yeah, and so it was just nonstop and it never ended, and so I just remember not being able to make plans. Every day I was just so tired, and I lived alone in an apartment, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Is this worth it? Like, is
Oh,
this worth
yeah.
working 3 jobs?" And I'm not, thriving as an adult. Like, I just thought it would feel a lot different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's when I finally decided, like, "Okay, this isn't gonna work for me." And I don't know, you can't plan out your life of, that day that you're gonna get married and have,
Right.
like, a dual income and whatever, and so I really need to prepare my life and my future for what's best for me,
Yeah.
as an individual. And so, yeah, that
That's
was a
really
big
good
decision.
advice. Really
Yeah.
good advice, because I think a lot of people as well have this plan in
Mhm.
mind of what their of a timeline
Yeah.
of like, well,
Mhm.
by 25 I'll be married.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're not
Yeah.
though? And then what?
Mhm. Well, that was so me too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, everyone in my family has been married super young. Like, my parents were high school sweethearts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then my cousin got married young. She's a nurse as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so and then it skipped me, and then my brother got married super young and my sister. And so, yeah, it's just kind of been a thing in our family. And so I always thought, oh yeah, I'll be having kids by 25. I'll
Yeah.
get to teach some dance here on the side and it'll just be fun. And yeah, that's just not the way it turns out. So you're
Yeah.
not really in control of that timeline. So
And that's okay though, too,
yeah.
because I think, my little sister, I'm gonna put her on blast a little
Yeah.
bit. I think she's had the same
Okay.
thoughts, and
Mhm.
I think she's 27. In my
Okay.
head, she'll always be 12, so
Yeah.
I really have to do the
I feel
math.
that. Yeah.
But I think that she's also had, like, this timeline of exactly
Mhm.
what will happen. Kind of not type A, but kind of type A
Yeah.
personality. Like,
Yeah.
and because of society, of our parents,
Mhm.
of other people telling us like
Yep.
how your life should look,
Yeah.
and then when it doesn't, like it can really fuck with your
Mhm.
head.
Yeah. It's so confusing. It's like, did I do something wrong, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah, I'm really thankful looking back now. Like, it's given me so much more independence. I'm getting to step into a second career where I can focus strictly on that and what I want and be a
Yeah.
little bit selfish in this season. Cause, you do look at your friends and, whatever, and they've started families but that's not any easier. That's just a different chapter. And I'm like, you
Exactly.
can spend a little time with them and then you're like, "Mm, no kids is kind of nice. I don't know."
I
Like,
kind of like this.
yeah, literally.
I like
I
this
always
little
come
life.
away saying that. Yeah. My brother has two, and I love them to death, and they're just always running around and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of watching them, I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like, it's
Right.
exhausting. So
Oh, I feel
yeah,
like then it's helped you mature in a sense
yes.
because something I did get married young. I
Hmm.
got married at I just fresh 22-year-old.
Yeah.
And while I wouldn't take it back, I can also look back now 10
Hmm.
years later and be
Hmm.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I was a baby."
Yeah.
And
Yep.
luckily my parents, luckily me and my husband
Hmm.
grew
Hmm.
together and separate, but a lot of people don't, or
Yeah.
one
Yep.
grows and then the other one is like who is this
Yeah.
person? Well, we're not supposed to be the same person at
Right.
22.
Right.
But like I feel like you have that forethought of
Yep.
like you can look back and be like, wow, I don't know, it's
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's not,
Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be a message out there that you don't have to get married
No,
really
you
young.
don't. Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
50% of divorce, isn't it? 50% of people divorce.
Something like that.
And
Yeah.
a lot of them are getting married young. So like it's
Hmm.
okay to pause, pivot your
Yep.
life,
And same thing
start
career-wise.
different.
It's like I just feel like I'm gonna find what's more fitting for me the
Yes.
older I am because I'm more comfortable with who I am now and I'm
Yeah.
really set in who I am and just yeah, I know those things about myself and
I
what
feel
I
like you've got
want.
some
So,
self-worth.
no,
I
thank
can,
you.
it's like an aura.
Thank you.
It's nice though because I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of young people struggle with that. I do too,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
still working on
Oh
it. But
yeah.
me now versus then,
Mhm.
in both myself, my relationship, my career, I'm like, oh, like I know what I
Yeah.
deserve now, but
Yep.
me 22 years old, I'm not sure I did.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I feel like you're a step ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Do you have big plans for which part of nursing you want to go in, or do you not know yet?
I don't know. I feel like I'm really interested to like honestly just hear what each one, has
Yeah.
to offer. But I feel like labor and delivery would be so fun just because yeah, I love little babies. But I know
Yeah.
I feel like everyone says that. I feel like the
I didn't say
emergency
that.
no, okay.
I wasn't
Maybe not
about it.
everyone. Yeah. I feel like emergency would be cool too, just
Yeah.
because I like that fast pace. Like I don't know, it'd always be different, which I think would be really cool.
Very true.
Yeah, and a lot of good like training probably. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not like against anything. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
pediatrics would be fun too because I've worked with kids forever, and I feel like I have a heart for them, and it does take a special person. I feel like to work with kids.
It
So
does.
yeah, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's kinda how I was too whenever I
really.
first started. I
Okay.
just knew I wanted to be a nurse. When
Hmm.
we got through actually, I got a little scared by 3rd semester
Really.
because I was like, "Okay, none of this seems interesting to
Yeah.
me. I don't wanna work with older people."
Hmm.
I had been I love old people, but just like
Aren't you an ICU?
I am in
Yeah.
ICU. What do you know? I ended up there. But I mean, like med surge, I guess. Med surge
Yeah.
geriatric. I was like, no,
Yeah.
that can't be my life.
Yeah.
I thought PICU,
Okay.
pediatric
Hmm.
ICU, but I think it's because I got to finally see critical care. I
Hmm.
was like, oh, but by 4th semester, which is when we
Yeah.
went into adult critical care, I was like,
Hmm.
this is where I want to be.
Okay.
It was like a light bulb moment. So maybe you'll have
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah. I
Or
hope
you'll
so.
or you'll have options. What do
Yeah.
you want? Because
That's true.
I was like dead set on that. And I was
Hmm.
like, if I don't get that,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be a nurse.
Yeah.
And what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
That's not gonna be good.
Hmm.
Are you following Anna the nurse?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
I was about to
yeah.
say she's
Yeah.
labor and delivery.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that, you should
Yes.
be following her.
Yeah, I love her stuff. And there's John.
And there's John, shout out.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of random question, but what prereq has been the hardest for you so far?
Um,
Or what do you think will be the hardest?
the one I'm currently in.
What is it?
It's my last one. It's applied pathophysiology, the study of disease.
Dude,
I'm like,
patho's so dense
yeah,
to me. I'm
it's a
like,
lot of info. And yeah, I'm in accelerated courses.
oh,
So the actual nursing program will be 16 months.
oh wow.
Mhm.
You're
So
gonna be
once I
fast
start, yeah, it'll
paced.
be, like,
Bada
quick.
bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah, so this class is 8 weeks, and that's the longest class I've taken.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I just started it, and I'm like, "Whoa," we have yeah, like, 10 assignments a week, discussion boards, and, like, 12 lectures for each,
Oh my
like,
God.
section. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot, so
Do you have a support system? And also, if I ask questions that you don't answer, just tell me,
okay.
shut up. But do you have a support system?
I do. My family's great. They're the
That's
ones
awesome.
that sat down, and my dad is always the one that will kind of, like, press us,
Yeah.
when we are, wanting to go in a certain direction or make a big choice. He's kind of always the person we go and talk to. And so,
Oh,
yeah, when I told him about I wanted to go back for nursing, he's like, "Do you?" And are kind of like challenging questions, and I was like,
why?
"I don't know. Yeah, never mind." And so I like left for the day. I remember just being like, well, okay, if I'm not gonna do that, like, what else am I gonna do? Like, I
Yeah.
thought I did. And then I'm like, no, wait, I do. Like, I do wanna do this. And so I like wrote up a whole thing for him and like had him over for dinner at my apartment, him and my mom. And I was like, no, I wanna do this. Like, I'm positive. Like, these are the reasons. And he's like, great. I think that'll be a great choice. And I'm like, oh,
You're like, "Wait,
yeah.
you made me nervous."
Yeah. And he's like, no, I just wanna make sure that's like really what you're passionate about. And so,
Aw.
yeah, his personality has definitely just helped me a lot. Like, cause it does challenge you, but it's always in your favor. And no matter
Yeah.
what you wanna do, like,
So
they'll
he's just
support you
playing, like, devil's
100%.
advocate a
Oh,
little bit. Like,
absolutely. That's what he always says too. Yeah.
yeah, he's the
Yep.
devil's advocate in your family.
Yep.
That's my husband.
Really?
Sometimes I'm like, "Shut up, I don't
Yeah.
need your
Yeah.
advice, I just want you to listen."
Yep. I tell him that too. I'm like, Dad, I'm not looking for advice. I just want to talk, like, be a girl for a second. No.
A
But
girl's
yeah.
girl.
Yeah. And my mom's just like 100%. She, yeah, was
No,
so on
that's
board.
awesome.
Yeah. She's very good. She was a doula for a while.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
very
so she wanted to
cool.
be a nurse, I think, for a while, but then she ended up raising 4 kids. And so, yeah, consumed a lot of her time.
Absolutely.
But I tell her now, I'm like, you should go back. Like, you'd make
Aw.
a great nurse just because she's so, I don't know, she loves like the medical stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've seen a lot of mother-daughter duos
Really?
actually, or like me and my husband were
Mm-hmm.
both in nursing school at the same time, but
Yeah.
different, cohorts. He got
Okay.
in before me.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a
Nope.
still a
How
little bit of a
sweet.
tough subject. No, I'm just kidding. But, and then I've seen, like, father-son. I've seen a lot or
Wow.
brothers, sisters,
Okay.
so it can definitely
Yeah,
happen.
that's so cool.
I asked about the support system because
Mhm.
I think one of my number one questions I get is, how did you get through nursing
Mhm.
school? And I think that's the number one thing. If you don't have a support system, it's hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. A lot of
Yeah.
people have no one helping them or supporting their ideas, their
Mhm.
values. And I feel like when that's not there, you can get really down on yourself.
Yeah.
You do have a support system, but if you
Mhm.
didn't, do you have like any advice for people?
Oh,
And if you
well,
can't think of anything, it's okay.
I don't know, that's hard. Well, I'm religious, so I'm
Okay, yeah.
Christian. And so I feel like for me, it turns to like a lot of like
Leaning on
prayer,
God.
yeah, and leaning on
Yeah.
God. And I prayed a lot about it personally too. So I feel like it was just a choice, that you have to make. And it's kind of like we talked about too, though, like that inner confidence. Like
Yeah.
you just have to know like what is my skill set? What do I want to be good at? Because you can learn anything you want to. And that's what I'm learning. Like
Yes.
you don't have to be just good at it. You don't have to be naturally good at it either. Like it might take more work. You might have to
Mhm.
test it a couple extra times, but you can do it. And
I
so,
totally agree with
yeah,
that.
that would probably be my
Yeah,
advice.
that's really good
Yeah,
advice because
thanks.
I think a lot of people struggle with comparing.
Mhm.
Comparison is the thief of joy,
Yeah.
and it's so
Yeah.
true because you compare yourself one time and then
Mhm.
you've just knocked yourself down a
Yep.
notch, when in
Absolutely.
reality, you said it earlier, we're in different chapters of our lives.
Mhm.
It's like about the
Yeah.
journey, the all the
Yeah.
little cheesy phrases,
Yeah.
but it's true. It's
Yeah.
like you can't compare yourself to anyone else because
Yeah.
we don't know your life experience,
Mhm.
what happened to you in your life,
Yeah.
why you're at where you are.
Yeah, I've heard of it like in the analogy, and I love this, that like swimmers in their lane, like to stay in your lane,
Yeah.
because if a swimmer like in a race was looking up, then they would
You're
lose
gonna get
seconds. Oh
behind.
yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, so I've always thought of that, and me and my best friend say that to each other all the time when we start to compare. We'll be like, "Stay in your own
Stay in
lane."
your
Yeah, and
You
so
gotta have people like
yeah,
that in
yeah,
your life,
absolutely.
though. So, I also saw that you hear a lot of, like, negativity about nursing.
Hmm.
Where do you see that, or what have you heard?
Um,
Probably on TikTok, if I had to guess.
Yeah, everywhere. I was just actually in the hospital a couple months ago. We unfortunately lost my
Mm.
grandma and my aunt
Oh,
like
I'm
within a
sorry.
month of each other, but my aunt was in the ICU. And so it's funny just because every person that had come in, my mom, like that number one supporter, she's like,
Yeah.
she's going to school to be a nurse. And so I'm like, no, like, because then it makes me sound like I know something, and I'm like, I'm not even in the school yet. Like, I haven't
That's
even been accepted.
every parent.
Yeah, but I love you. Thank you. So yeah, they would always just look at me and be like, don't do it. And I'm
No,
like, "Oh, that's, like, so discouraging,"
it is
It's like,
discouraging.
I'm already in school, like, what do you want me to do? Just drop out because of you're telling me to do that?
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know, a lot of just everybody, or "Are you sure you wanna do that?" So a lot of it comes from nurses.
Mhm.
But what I was explaining to one of the nurses I talked to at the ICU, she was saying how, just burnout, through 2020 and how crazy that was and everything. And I'm like, I totally understand. But on the flip
Yeah.
side of that, like teaching for me was kind of that in 2020. And now like the education system is not the same either.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what kind of people were doing, if you got hit hard in that time, it's not the same anymore, and you have to get
Mhm.
used to a new norm. So I can't imagine, being a nurse in that time and then coming back and not feeling burnt out. But I tried to tell her, I'm coming in after, so hopefully it is a fresh experience. I don't know
Right.
what it was like before, so I have
Right.
nothing to compare it to. So yeah, just a lot of people, I would say.
I think that does you made a good point. It
Mhm.
happens in every field, but,
Yeah.
like, when you're in the field, you think it's just you.
Mhm.
Like, if you bring up burnout on social media and you're just talking about burnout,
Yep.
anyone in the comments will be talking about their profession.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever I get questions about, well, should I still be a nurse? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what you should do because I don't
Mhm.
know your life
Right.
experience, where you came
Right.
from, how you handle
Mhm.
situations. But what I can tell you is you're gonna find negativity in
Yeah.
any career.
Right.
Any career. Unfortunately, in nursing, there's a lot of big egos.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you have to learn how to work around other
Mhm.
people in a sense, but I think you have to do that everywhere as well.
Yeah.
Like something that's talked about a lot is like, well, my high school bully grew up and became a nurse, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah. You're
oh,
like,
well,
"Okay." Yeah.
okay, well, like my mom worked in banking and
Mhm.
a bunch of older women were bullies to her.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yep.
everywhere. Nursing's one
Absolutely.
of the biggest workforces
Mhm.
in the nation.
Yep.
Of course, your high school bully ended up being a nurse.
Right.
It's like 60% of the workforce
Right.
is a nurse.
Well, and people just grow up and get older, but people don't necessarily change. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you are working with all different personalities just like high school because
Yeah.
they're the same people. So, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like there is a lot of negativity, but I don't know. I try to bring like some positivity, but
Yeah.
also when people are like, "Well, I want to leave." I'm like, "Then
Mhm.
leave.
Yeah.
You should leave. If
Mhm.
you feel like you are burnt out to a point
Yep.
where you can't have compassion for
Mhm.
people at
Yeah.
all anymore,
Right.
you probably should leave
Mhm.
on like I'm trying to say that nicely.
Yeah. No, yeah.
It's time to pivot
Mhm.
or step away if you can
Yep.
because it's a hard job and we are dealing with people. I
Absolutely.
will say about COVID, I started my nursing career beginning of 2019.
Mm.
And so I worked for a year. So I got to see a
Yeah.
little bit before
Yeah.
COVID. And then 2020 hit
Mhm.
and I got to work through that. And it actually made me a better nurse. And
Mm.
maybe it's the timeline.
Mhm.
I experienced a lot all at once.
Mhm.
It felt like it was never going away,
Yeah.
so that was becoming the new norm.
Yeah.
Luckily, it went
Yeah.
away-ish.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as it was, but I will say, I don't know, I would do it again,
Mhm.
not because obviously we lost a lot of innocent people
Yeah.
and people lost their loved ones, and
Mhm.
that's not the reason, but there was a lot more autonomy
Yeah.
during COVID.
Mhm.
Nurses were trusted
Mhm.
by everyone.
Yep.
Even in on the unit, doctors wouldn't even not everywhere, so don't
Mhm.
come for me,
Yeah.
but doctors wouldn't even go in the room. They would
Yeah.
stand outside the room and direct us what to do in the room.
Wow.
I mean, it was kinda like the Wild Wild West, but to me, like, I learned so much.
Mhm.
But also, I did get burnt out at one point. I was like,
Yeah.
"If this is our new forever,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can do it."
Yeah.
Which luckily,
Yeah.
we figured out a way to not be so it's not as
Mhm.
hard. Um, but I don't know. I'm with you with people saying like it's don't do it,
Yeah.
leave. I'm like, I feel
Yeah.
like everyone says that about their field.
Mhm. Yeah, but
So
there's still a lot of people in school for nursing and a lot of
exactly.
nurses, so
And a
we
lot of
can't all hate it.
physicians,
Yeah,
open
exactly.
positions, we still need
Yeah.
nurses. So I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you telling everyone not
I
to?
know. Well, and not everyone has to work bedside. Like, you can
Right.
just do so many different things. So
That's the
if you're a
beauty of
bedside
it.
nurse and you don't wanna be, don't be
Change.
one. Yeah, exactly. So,
Outpatient.
yeah, there's med spas now. I mean, a lot of people are
Yes.
just going for that too, and it's
Yes.
yeah, you can do so many different
And, like,
things.
virtual
So,
nursing,
yep.
I was on this girl named Ava, she's on TikTok, she's a
Okay.
virtual nurse,
Mhm.
and she was on a live with I don't know who she was talking to, but they were
Mhm.
telling her about AI nursing, and I was like, "Okay, calm down, that's a
What?
little creepy," but pretty much they're about to initiate AI into hospitals to help us with, like, vital signs and things like that,
Huh.
which I think is cool,
Yeah,
but then also I'm like,
kinda scary.
"Kinda
Yeah.
scary, could take our
Yeah.
jobs." Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so, like,
true. Yeah.
maybe all
Okay.
those jobs are about to be
Yeah,
taken by
yeah.
AI.
Oh, goodness.
But I was like,
No.
I've always said, like, nursing will be the last thing to be taken over by
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
I'm still, like, crossing my
Yeah.
fingers, but I was like, "Damn, that was
It's getting
fast."
close, yeah.
Too close. Um, what do you do we're pivoting a lot, but what
Okay.
do you do to decompress? Anything special?
Um,
Because you will need it in nursing.
yeah, I know. I think I'm still trying to find it. I like to work out. I like to go and take a dance class here and there, like at
Yeah.
the gym even. Yeah, or just read like something I enjoy to read,
So
or
you're a book
watch a show.
book
Yeah,
girly.
I like to watch yeah, I like to read,
Okay.
so yeah.
That's good. I always tell people to, like, you have to find what works best for you to
Yeah.
decompress, but you have to decompress. You have to fill your own cup, or
Mhm.
else you're not gonna be able to take care of people
Yeah,
properly.
that's a good point. What's your favorite?
I don't know. It depends on the day.
Okay, yeah.
But I like to read too. I
Mhm.
like a lot of quiet time, a lot of
Okay.
me time.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I love me time. But
Mhm.
I will say a few years ago, that was not the case. Like a few
Really?
years ago, I was scared to be alone. I
Okay.
had to always be hanging out with somebody.
Mhm.
But with therapy, I was like, you know what? Actually, my favorite time is me time.
Mhm.
Just doing whatever I want. Either shopping.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie,
Ooh,
shopping.
yeah.
Shopping's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get
Maybe
me out of
once I
my head.
graduate, I can get back to that.
Exactly. You will, you will, you will. Shopping, reading a book, hanging out with my dogs or my
Yeah.
husband. Like
Yeah.
that's the best way.
Yeah.
Not thinking about work.
Mhm. Yep. I'm the same way. With teaching, that was like the same thing. You just
Yeah.
feel so overstimulated by the end of your day.
Yes.
So yeah, you do have to have that quiet time, even if it's with somebody. But
Yeah.
yeah, just quiet to recharge, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So before we wrap up with
Mhm.
this part of your episode, is there any story you can talk about of you learning and failing that you think will help guide you in your future, but also maybe someone listening might help them? Doesn't have to be nursing related, but like something you maybe quote unquote failed at and you
Mhm.
learned from and you can move on.
That's a
But
good
it's also a
question.
question on the spot.
Yeah,
So
I know. I'm like, oh, it's like an interview. No.
it's like an interview.
Like an
Tell me.
interview. Let me think. I feel like I had a ton of fails, like through teaching. Like you
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I don't know if I can like think of one, but it just teaches you to really humble like yourself.
Yeah.
Just because if you walk in there and think like you know it all, or you talk about something that you don't know, like kids can see right through you. And
Hmm.
so I feel like that was my biggest just like stepping stone and learning, like for me, is just
Yeah.
being like humbled by them.
Yeah.
So
That's a
yeah,
great
that's the first one that comes to mind.
That's honestly a great thing to take into nursing too,
Mhm.
because lots of people fear that they can't be vulnerable and saying,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And they'll pretend and
Yeah.
then harm a patient
Yep.
or harm themselves.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's something I hope that we get out there with this near future is everyone needs to be okay with saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's hard because your coworkers, some of them
Mhm.
are assholes
Yeah.
and they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, you didn't know that,
Yeah.
make you feel bad.
Mhm.
But you being vulnerable and
Yep.
humbling yourself to
Mhm.
just be okay with not knowing everything.
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like I've always kind of been like that. I'm the oldest of four. And so when
Ah,
I like,
okay.
I don't know, when I don't know something though, like I feel like a little bit more on the bold side of being like, I don't know, or will you help explain this to me? Because I genuinely want to know the answer to things. And
Yeah.
I feel like by asking questions, it's the only way you can really grow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read you a couple new grad stories
Okay.
and we'll see if they resonate at all
Okay.
or, where you're at. Because I haven't got to read a new grad story to someone who's not in nursing school yet, but is
Okay.
looking forward to it. So I haven't even
Scary.
read this one yet. So I'm hoping it's okay.
Okay.
This says, Hi, Lindsay. I wanted to share my new grad story. When I passed the 6-month mark, I was floated to another ICU for the first time with 2 downgrade patients. One was a trauma patient who needed topical ointment. It was during COVID, so I was wearing a mask. I scanned the box for the ointment, but didn't check the tube. As I applied it to her face, I noticed it was a bright white color. She said, Hun, this burns. And I reassured her, It's fine. It's just a side effect. That's when I checked the tube and realized I had put toothpaste all over her face. Because of the mask, I couldn't smell the mint from the
Mm.
toothpaste. I tried to wipe it off and she kept asking why, and I awkwardly replied, I think I put too much. She looked like a white panda.
Oh no. That's terrible.
It's terrible.
We talked about that actually in one of my classes. I feel like it was maybe anatomy or one of the along the lines of that. And since I'm in the like nursing pathway, everything
Yeah.
is geared towards nursing, even if it's not, talking about it or whatever. And so one of our discussions was how can you ensure that you're always giving, the
Yeah.
right medications or whatever, and can you trust computers or this or that? And I'm like, that scared me enough to know like I would probably check everything like 3 times.
You
Like,
should.
yeah, because
Yes.
what's in there might just have been put in there by accident or the dosage
Exactly.
amount or anything. So
And
that's terrible.
tubes, a lot of them are from, like, the same manufacturer, so they look
Mhm.
and feel the same, and
Yeah.
if you don't slow down
Yeah.
to read them,
Mhm.
yeah, you're gonna do something like
Right.
luckily, it was just
Yeah.
toothpaste, could have
That could
been
have been
any
bad
other
though. Yeah.
medication, and we didn't know.
Yeah. That's
Luckily, it was
terrible.
just toothpaste, but I thought that was funny. I was like
That's awesome.
it is just something
Wow.
too, like you said, you have to slow down.
Mhm.
One of my first mistakes as a new grad was
Mhm.
rushing,
Yeah.
not reading,
Mhm.
clicking okay next on
Yeah.
Epic,
Okay.
which never do that. And I ended up giving the correct medication,
Mhm.
wrong patient. So yeah, so next door's medication, but luckily my patient was still taking that exact medication and
Ooh.
dose. but wrong
Wow.
name. I left and I went to get my preceptor 'cause she unfortunately let me try to fly, and then she said, "That's it, you're
Yeah.
coming back
Nope.
with me."
Yeah.
But I said, "So something is weird happening in here on the chart. It's like it's not letting me scan it." She's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay. Did you give it?" And I said, "Yes." She was like, "Why did you give it
Yeah.
if it's not scanning properly?" And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "Okay." We go in there. She's like, You're lucky this is the correct medication.
Yeah.
Wrong patient,
Wow.
but you could have really fucked up. It
Yeah.
could have been bad."
I would have freaked out. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
and never again. That's when I was like, have to slow down,
Yeah.
read.
Mhm.
Just because someone's on your ass doesn't mean you have to be going
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
have to be the one to be like, "Nope, I need to slow down."
Yep. Especially when you're new. Like,
Oh my
you only
god.
can, like, yeah, be your greatest advocate and be like,
Exactly.
"I'm new. I'm gonna go slow through this," and yeah, and
Exactly.
that's okay. So, that's
I'm gonna read
crazy.
another one for you.
Okay.
This one says, okay, so this is my favorite oopsie as a new nurse. Here we go. While waiting for my license to go through, I was hired on a COVID unit as a nurse intern. Basically, we're in charge of meds, vitals, med passes, glucose checks, simple tasks to help the nurse. So, me and my nurse had 5 patients. One of them had severe impaired hearing, but not completely deaf, and one was legally blind. So, one patient's kind of deaf, one's legally blind. I go into my blind patient's room to bring them their breakfast. I spoke very loud so they could hear me through my N95 because they were hearing impaired, right? I said, "Good morning, Mrs. Smith. Would you like some breakfast this morning?" They looked in my general direction and replied, "Honey, I am blind, not deaf. Stop yelling." Realizing this was my blind patient and not my hearing impaired patient, I was instantly mortified and started stuttering so bad I had to quickly leave the room. Embarrassed to the point of almost crying, I went and found my preceptor and told her what I did and asked her, again on the verge of complete tears, quote, "Can you go in and do her morning meds? I'm so embarrassed. I don't want her to see me crying and blushing." My nurse looked at me, not
I know where this is
entertained,
going.
and deadpanned. "How is she going to see you blush if she's blind?" Cue the full torrent of
Oh.
tears. I'm glad I can tell the story and laugh now because at the time I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole.
Oh, I can imagine there's so many moments like that that you're just like, "Why did I say that?" Or like, "Why did I do that?" And they're
So
already
many.
watching you so closely because 'cause they're vulnerable
Right,
being there.
right.
So,
Oh, so
oh,
many moments like that, but honestly, and again, it doesn't hurt the
yeah.
patient. Like,
Yeah.
it's something to laugh about.
Right.
Even if it may have, like, hurt the patient's feelings, it was
Yeah.
innocent,
Mhm.
It wasn't on purpose, and this
Yeah.
person was clearly overwhelmed. But
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
stuff like that's really
That's
funny.
so funny. When I was actually doing one of the life stories one time, I had a patient that I was going in and they didn't tell me beforehand that she was blind and deaf, like a little deaf. And so I went in and she's like, "I can't hear you." And I was like, "What?" And so like I go back out and they're like, "Oh yeah, she's like,
Hard of
hard of
hearing.
hearing and she's blind. She can't see." I was like, "Okay." And so I go back in and she's trying to tell me something, just talking very quietly. I finally understand that she's trying to tell me that she's choking on her pill.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
She's like, "I'm choking on my pill." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, "Okay, you're a nurse. Hold on." I never went back to that room. I was
You
like, "I
said,
can't."
"I don't need to know your story
Nope.
today."
Yeah. It sounds like you've had a rough one. So,
That's actually funny.
yeah.
I mean, but stuff like that happens,
Yeah.
and now it's kind of funny. It's funny to
Mhm.
laugh about because
Yeah.
she's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing harmed her.
I feel like if you're introverted too, which I tend to be a little bit more, like
Me
things can
too.
make you feel more awkward faster too. So I'm a little nervous for that.
So
But
true,
yeah.
and I'm just kind of awkward
Yeah.
in
Same.
general,
Yeah.
so, like, this would happen to
Yep.
me. I mean, it hasn't yet,
Me
and I don't know
too.
how, but, like,
Yeah.
this type of stuff is so funny to me because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
this would happen to any new
Yeah.
grad, but specifically introverted,
Yep.
awkward
Awkward
people.
people. Yep.
You're like,
Mhm.
check.
Yep.
Okay."
That's a good story. Prepares me.
It is. Yeah, that's why I wanted to read you a couple,
Yeah.
couple 'cause I was like, this will give you an idea of what you're
Yep.
looking forward to. Well, do you have any questions? Do you have any last things you wanna tell the world?
Mm. Well, I'll ask you a question.
Ooh, okay.
What's your biggest piece of advice for, like, stepping into this next season as far as, like, well, anything, and then as far as just, like, memorizing things so quickly and having to learn so much at once, like, what's something
I
that
feel you
might
there.
help me?
No one's ever asked me a question on my
Really?
podcast, so
Oh,
now I know
you
I
said you
love
have questions.
I know, and I was
I'm
like,
like,
"Maybe
"Yeah, a
we'll
lot."
see, we'll see." I would say my biggest piece of advice is it's gonna sound cliche, but you have to take it day by day. You
Mhm.
can't look at, "Well, I have to finish this program in" what did you say? 16
Yeah.
months. You have to take it day by day,
Mhm.
and that means, first of all, you have to figure out what type of tester you are.
Okay.
Can you test with your friend, or can you
Mhm.
study with your friends? Are you a
Mhm.
group person? Are you someone by yourself? You have to figure that
Mm.
out real fast
Okay.
because I tried to test with my friends,
Mhm.
like study together,
Yeah.
I'm a I'm gonna be yapping.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be a big
Yeah.
distraction for them and for me. So
Mhm.
I figured out quickly, okay, I have to study at my house
Yeah.
where I can control the noise,
Yep.
the food, anything
Mhm.
going on.
That's smart.
Study, figure out where you study best because some
Mhm.
people do great with group
Mhm.
study.
Okay.
Number 2, what was the second part of your question?
Any other advice that's not necessarily study related or
You said
memorization?
something. Oh, it's leaving me. Like I tell like everyone to you have a clear sense of your why,
Mhm.
and you have to have a clear sense of why
That
you're
makes
doing
sense.
this because it's
Yeah.
going to be hard. There are
Mhm.
going to be so many days you're not motivated to study or go to
Mhm.
school.
Yeah.
You want to skip class,
Yeah.
and sometimes okay, skip class every
Yeah.
now and then. But you have to remember your why and why you're doing it, and you don't want
Mhm.
to put yourself any more behind. And
Yeah.
you're not behind in life, but when you're in that moment, you think you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you do something like that, like, you just have to keep your why at the forefront of your mind because
Mhm.
it's gonna challenge you.
Mhm.
Nursing's gonna make you especially school is gonna make you wonder, like, "Why am I doing this
Mhm.
again?" Oh, yeah, because I want this set up in my life.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very important to remind yourself of that every day. Also, if you have spare time, make sure you pamper yourself in some way. Go to
Yeah.
the gym, have me time. I don't know, if you can afford a facial or a massage, do it,
Mhm.
but do something for you because this will consume your life for the
Yeah.
next 16 months,
Yeah.
but that's okay
Mhm.
because you have a why. You're gonna
Yeah.
get through it.
That's good advice.
That's it, okay,
Thank
'cause I
you.
feel like I'm rambling.
No, I love it.
Okay, well, that's all I have for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Are you on social media?
I am.
Where can anyone find you?
Just Instagram at Ashley Jasensky.
Okay, and her social media will be in the description, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Bye.